Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, I'm going to react to how can someone tell you're American without you telling them. Now, this is going to be interesting because I think most people who've traveled a little bit can tell there's certain things about citizens of a particular country that make them unique. Like French people, there's definitely a style and a sophistication that they have on average, and it's just like I feel like I can tell someone's French or from France, you know, quite quickly. Similar thing for Germans. Maybe I can probably Americans as well. Like obviously the accent's the major tell, but judge like the baseball cap thing is a big tell. So yeah, I'm guessing there's going to be many other things that, you know, are going to make it onto that list. So this video I'm sure is going to be really fun to watch. So let's do it.
How can you tell someone is an American without them telling you they're American?
So I'm American, but I studied abroad in London during college, and we had like some orientation to like tell us about, you know, what it was like studying abroad. And they said, you know, you have to do things because people will notice that you're American. There are things that Americans do that they don't do in England, like smile at strangers on the sidewalk. And I thought, what kind of psychopath smiles at a stranger on the sidewalk? Like, why are you even telling me this? Is super weird. Fast forward, I get to London. I'm excited. I go for a walk around my neighborhood, and people keep looking at me weird. I'm like, God, these guys are kind of assholes. And then I realize I'm the psychopath smiling at strangers on the sidewalk.
No. I mean, I think this depends on where you are. This depends on where you are in England.
Can you tell someone is an American without them telling you they're American?
Well, Americans, or at least the most of them, they can't drive a manual. And it's not just that, but when they find out that anyone in the world can drive one, they look at you like you're totally insane. Now, I don't know about America, but at least in most countries in Europe, you don't get a driver license if you can drive a manual. That's like basic stuff for us.
I mean, you can get an automatic license, but you can't drive a manual car. I think driving manual's more fun. Like, what do you guys think?
How can you tell someone is an American without them telling you they're American?
So I'm actually American, but I lived overseas for like 10 plus years. I've lived in Africa and Europe, and I've been pretty much everywhere. So let me tell you how I can tell if you're an American tourist or not. One of the biggest definers is how you dress. Any man I see that's wearing cargo shorts, I immediately know is American.
Yeah.
Also, footwear tends to be a pretty big identifier. American sneakers are pretty ugly, and lots of people don't really wear sandals overseas.
Yeah, that's
also,
true.
depending on where you are, your height can be a huge identifier. I lived in the Netherlands for 4 years,
Very
and the
tall
Dutch
country.
are very tall people.
Yep.
So anyone that was 6 foot or shorter, I could kind of tell. Also, the very obvious one is Americans tend to be louder than other people. You pretty much make it known whether you want to or not because Americans have such loud voices. Also, at least in
I've
Europe,
heard that one a few
Americans tend
times.
to dress more for comfort than style. Almost 100% of my fashion sense nowadays is because I lived in Europe. Europeans dress up just to go to the grocery store.
Yep,
For
it's
you.
true. It's true.
How can you tell someone is an American without them telling you they're American?
Extremely white and functional trainers or sneakers and baseball caps.
How can you tell someone is an American without them telling you they're American?
I was serving a table of Americans once, and they were driving down from Dublin on a motorway, and they asked us why there was a castle in the middle of the motorway and why we didn't just knock it down to put the motorway through it. The thousands-year-old castle, sure.
How can you tell someone is an American without them telling you they're American?
I can answer this question. I live in Paris currently, and I noticed that us Americans are very loud and excitable. So if you're like in the public touristy areas, and especially on the metro, and see a very loud group of people.
But I kind of like loud, excitable people. You know, I like people with passion, you know, that aren't afraid to be themselves.
9 times out of 10, they're Americans. My current theory on why that is because Americans have a bigger personal space bubble than Europeans, so we have to like yell to get the point across. Also, I don't know if this is exclusively Americans, but we wear a lot of graphic tees with branding on it, and we always get hot and take our coats off, and for some reason, the French never get hot. It can be 75 degrees, and they will wear coats and scarves, and I don't know what witchcraft that is. It must be blood magic, because, like, they're fine. They're not breaking a sweat, and those, like, mark us as great targets for grifters and scam artists.
How can you tell someone is an American without them telling you they're American?
Usually it's the clothing. It's either you can see them wearing brands that are not readily available here in Germany or in Europe, or it's a certain style, like an athleisure wear that's just not very common here. Like even to go to the supermarket, people will still throw on a pair of jeans and a sweater, even if it's their messiest look. They'll still kind of put together, whereas you'll see someone literally shopping in their slippers. And you know that person's an American. People here tend to, kind of dress up even to go shopping. Also, volume. And
Yeah, the volume thing is quickly becoming like a common denominator.
Myself can be heard from at least 200 feet away when I speak. Yeah.
How can you tell someone is an American without them telling you they're American?
So a little story time. So I used to be a waiter at a 4-star hotel near a Formula 1 circuit, and like every so often, because of the circuit, we had loads of people come in from different countries, so Japan, America, Canada, all that sort of stuff. Had some Americans come in and sit on my table. Their food was included, but their drinks were not, so they were paying for their drinks.
Tipping, right?
I could tell they were American/Canadian. I couldn't tell by the full accent, but I could tell they were American as soon as they tipped, because they tipped a considerable amount compared to their actual bill price, and it was quite a bit of a shock on the actual tipping culture in America.
Question for you. How can you tell someone is an American without...
Would you guys rather have no tipping, like we have here, like basically no tipping, or would you rather keep the system you guys have? I'd love to know. Let me know what you think.
Without them telling you they're American.
Is Hitler still your president?
How can you tell someone is an American without them telling you they're American?
If I ask them where they're from and they start to reply with percentages, they're American. If I tell them I'm Italian and they say they're Italian too because their great-grandpa was an immigrant, they're American. If they say stuff along the lines, oh, I have pizza every Saturday night, so we are the same, they're American. If they start to speak in like a mafia boss accent, like the ones from the movies, they're American. If they say, I went to Europe once, they're American. Because they're the only ones who don't know Europe is not just one country. If they don't understand the time on my phone, they're American.
How can you tell someone is an American without them telling you they're American?
Oh my god, here we go. Obnoxiously loud in public transportation. Will talk
I think it's like the fifth one that mentioned the volume.
Always wearing their collared sweatshirts and a baseball cap.
How can you tell someone is an American without them telling you they're American?
Now that is indeed a good question, because as a European and a Dane, we kind of figure it out quite easily. Here are some of the following statements or comments that I've got or heard. Hej, hvad kan jeg gøre for dig i dag? I'm sorry, I don't speak German. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were a tourist. What can I get for you today? Oh my god, like your accent, Oh my god, your accent. I cannot believe that you guys in Denmark are so nice, because I thought you were all communists. Excuse me?
Fucking
hey.
commies.
Yeah, what can I get for you? Would you please translate that on the board, because I don't understand that. Sure thing, it says cappuccino, but that is not a Danish coffee, like, I want a Danish coffee. You mean filterkaffe? Yeah, that one. That is the Danish coffee, right?
How can you tell someone is an American without them telling you they're American?
I'm going to tell a story to answer this question. I used to work at a National Historic Site, and we get a lot of visitors from all over the world. And since this is Canada, whenever you'd interact with a visitor, you'd say hello, bonjour, giving them the choice to speak English or French. Anyway, this guy comes in, and he's got a cowboy hat on, a buttoned-up shirt that's tucked into his jeans, he has leather boots, and to top it all off, his belt has American dollar bills printed on it. So me and my coworkers did our thing. We said, oh, hello, bonjour. And instead of just saying hi and continuing on with things, he stopped in his tracks, looked at us, and said, we don't speak that funny language. Didn't clarify which language he was talking about, but I think it was French. So yeah, that's how I could tell he was American.
You tell someone is an American without them telling you they're American.
One of the things I learned when I did my study abroad in Ireland is that the way you can tell American is American without having to hear them speak or anything is right here. Tennis shoes. Typically white tennis shoes.
Yeah,
I don't own any white tennis shoes.
Number
but
3.
Only Americans will wear tennis shoes nonstop. Most people in Europe wear like Doc Martens or like a dress shoe that's still really comfortable. But tennis shoes, when they're not at the actual gym, nope. You stand out as an American.
How can you tell someone?
But I guess it is comfortable. Like trainers or sneakers, as you guys call them, are very comfortable. So I totally get it. Guys.
Someone is an American without them telling you they're American.
They ask you some stupid questions. Like, why is everything closed on Sunday in Germany? Or why do you call soccer football? Or even, why is your coffee so yellow and sparkling?
Coffee.
How can you tell someone is an American without them telling you they're American?
Everything. Absolutely everything. Like their face. Do you know what I mean? How are you? Shut up.
How can you tell someone is an American without them telling you they're American?
It's actually kind of weird because we can spot you from the distance, and I'm not joking. Like, you have this aura, this glow, you glow American. American tourists are usually very loud, very excited, and in a party mode, and very outgoing. I'm from Germany, so most of the time American tourists are very drunk because you always want to try the German beer, which is great. These are all great things, but German people are usually, I'm not, but German people are usually very down to earth, like low-key, in their own little bubble, don't want to talk to strangers mode, and you're like, I want to be in your bubble, let me in your bubble, which is great, but it can be annoying. But I like American tourists, like especially on pub crawls, drinking beers with them.
Man, so I just got back from Barcelona, and there were some Americans on this bar crawl. So much fun, man. Americans are fun to party with. I'm going to leave it at that. But yeah, it was a great time.
It's very awesome meeting them, talking to them. Americans are at the Oktoberfest. Who are not?
What is the weirdest perverse interest an ex of yours has had?
This wasn't an ex, just a girl I kind of hooked up with. The first time we did it, she pooped inside the bed. And me being understanding, I'm like, shit happens. She probably had something spicy. The second time it happened, the day after, I was thinking, okay, diarrhea sometimes transfers into the second day. The third time it happened, I go, hey, what's going on here? And she goes, I like doing this. And me, once again, being understanding, I go, hey, hop in the shower. We can cuddle after. While she's showering, I grab all the bed sheets. I take the mattress out back. I throw everything out. She comes out of the shower. I go, hey, this isn't going to work out. And for those of you who have been watching me, that's why I didn't have a mattress at the beginning of this year.
That was fun. I think there's definitely some common denominators that we found. So the volume 1, the white sneakers, and also the overall dress sense. I kind of think it's cool. Like the fact that, you know, each nation has their own sort of like unique style and culture. It would be boring if everybody was exactly the same. But it's always fun, you know, when people from other countries can kind of spot someone from a certain place. I always find that quite an interesting phenomenon. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.